As the old saying goes, pardon the interruption, but things are fine, and we'll get back to our discussion on some of these ball players and the draft we just had on Sunday. Are you ready? Let's do it.
Tom is gone. Bueller is gone. And so my whole philosophy on the draft changes. It changes quickly. Thinking that, the season's going to be delayed, I can probably get a Snell or a Glasnow later, which I did. So I flipped my philosophy, and my entire first 10 picks are hitters. That's right. My first 10 picks were hitters. So let me go through some of those first 2 picks. So after I picked Betts at my first pick, I picked Juan Soto. Second, I picked Bryce Harper third. Now I'm on a roll. Okay, I'm getting all these great hitters, right? Then I get George Springer, Marcell Ozuna, Jordan Alvarez. I'm loving it. I follow that with Matt Olson, Bo Bichette, and Mike Moustakas. So basically my batting order, my regular lineup is set. Oh, and then I pick up Jose Abreu. So now I've got an incredible looking offense, and I think it's time I better pick up some pitchers. Blake Snell's sitting there, so I grab Blake Snell. I grab Tyler Glasnow. My next 4 picks were pitchers. Then I grab Yu Darvish, who I think is going to have a bounce back year this year with the Cubs. He's healthy. We know he strikes out a ton, and I love strikeout pitchers in fantasy baseball. And then I picked up Max Fried for Atlanta. And I want to pause for a moment, and let's talk about Max Fried. And chat room, what do you think of Max Fried? Last year he won 17 games as a rookie and struck out 178 batters. Now, he did walk more than I would like, but he had the lowest walk rate of his career, even though he allowed more base runners than I'd like, 6.7%. And I look for him to improve on that this year. His ERA was 4.18. I look for that to improve. I think Fried is a top 40 fantasy starting pitcher this year. I love the fact he's on the Braves. I think they're going to score him some runs. I think he's going to pick up 17 wins again. Now, I don't go chasing wins in fantasy, but I think Max Fried is going to get me those wins this year. And so now I'm sitting there with the lineup full, and I've got 4, I think, good starting pitchers. I know there's risk and reward with Snell and Glasnow. I know that. But I also know Tampa has been projected now to win almost as many games as the Yankees. That was the last I saw. And for Tampa to be successful, so do Snell and Glasnow have to be, in my opinion. They are the leaders of that team, pitching-wise. And so they head up my staff. And let's just look at the rest of my pitching staff. Starters, I got Sean Manaea for Oakland, Jose Luzardo for Oakland, and Julio Urias for the Dodgers. I think those 3 pitchers intrigue me maybe the most. You remember how well Manaea pitched at the end of the season last year? I mean, he was lights out. He did pitch the wild card game for the A's and did not fare well. But other than that, look at his line. Limited, I know, because he only played the last month because of surgery that cut short his season. But his last month of the year, he went 4-0, struck out 30 batters. He had a 1.21 ERA and a 0.78 whip. Intriguing. Luzardo pitched out of the bullpen last year. And these numbers don't tell you much, okay? But they tell you he didn't fall on his face. He saved 2 games. He struck out 16 batters. He had a 1.50 ERA and a 0.767 whip. Now, with the season cut short, I look for Luzardo to be able to pitch almost on a regular load this year. And at a regular load, throwing in the high 90s, pitching in that ballpark for that team, Luzardo, to me, is the most intriguing pitcher that I have. Followed closely by Julio Urias, who has been named by Dave Roberts as the fourth starter, not the fifth, but the fourth starter in the Dodger rotation. You know, they've been treating him with kid gloves the last two seasons. Here now this year, he's going to be in the rotation with the shortened season. I look for Urias to have a full year. We know he can strike out a ton. We know he's on the Dodgers, who are going to win a lot of games. And Julio Urias is going to be a big part of Dodgers' success this year. So I love the staff that I've put together. Backing them up, I also have Brendan McKay for Tampa Bay. And with my last pick in the draft, number 30, I picked Nate Pearson of the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, have you guys, you don't know the answer to this, to my rhetorical question, but have you guys been following Nate Pearson? I mean, the kid throws 100 miles an hour. He's going to be in the starting rotation. I've saw him pitch some this spring, one game against the Yankees. And in the first inning that he threw against the Yankees, he struck out the side. Against regulars, he throws hard. The ball is electric out of his hand. And I've already told you, Toronto, I think, may surprise a lot of people this year. Pearson, if Toronto's competitive, he will be called up. He will pitch in the major leagues, and he will be good. In fact, he'll be really good. So let's keep our eye on Nate Pearson, but I drafted him with the last pick in the draft. Good reason there. I always do that. I always try to look at the last pick as who gives me some really good upside. So my last two picks in the draft, I think, gave me upside. They may not make it this year, but if they do, I think they can really contribute. So with Pearson being my number 30 pick, you may ask, well, who was 29? Well, it was Joe Adele of the Anaheim Angels. Now, you can read every report in the world on Joe Adele. He could be Lewis Brinson. All right? He really could. He could be Lewis Brinson. But he could also be, pick your player, Darryl Strawberry. Go back several years. He could be Vladdy Guerrero. I mean, he has the upside to be a very special player. So I figure with my last two picks in a 30-team draft, pick a hitter with a lot of upside as a rookie, pick a pitcher with a lot of upside as a rookie. If they don't make it, you just cut them in this league. This is not a pay-as-you-play kind of deal. You can, it's pigs at the trough. You can't just pick up a player off the waiver wire to take their place, and I may do that. So I figure it's worth a shot. If they don't make it, we cut them. But those were my last two picks in the draft. Now, the interesting thing about this league that I really like is a 35-inning limit per week. It's head-to-head, and you play per week. So you've got to have 35 innings pitched per week to qualify in any pitching category. So knowing that as a rule, you don't need but so many starting pitchers. There's also a category in this league, percentage of team wins. So if you have players who play on winning teams and they pitch often, like a reliever, say an Ottavino, then you're going to get points in that category. So I drafted Ottavino as a reliever. I drafted Betances as a reliever. I think he's going to get a lot of work for the Mets. I think he's going to strike out a lot of people, just like Ottavino will. I've drafted Presley as a reliever for the Astros. Why do I draft these players? Is it a saves league? No, it's a saves and holds league, one category. So a holds guy is just as important as a saves guy, okay? And percentage of team wins. So I want players on teams that I think are going to win a lot. Those are my three relievers as I start the year. Also, I drafted taking a shot. Why hasn't Yasiel Puig been signed by anybody yet? That's a question I can't answer, but I can tell you he's sitting on the bench in my fantasy league on team that I drafted Sunday night, because I got to believe with the ability of Puig, somebody's going to sign him, and he's going to be good because he always has been. Now, we know the antics. We know what goes along with the statistics. But, the last I checked, my fantasy league, it doesn't look at the antics. It looks at the numbers. And he has always put up numbers, whether it be home runs, runs scored, RBIs, stolen bases, decent average, not great, but decent. He covers a lot of ground, a lot of categories that apply in this league. So I draft Yasiel Puig, I hold on to him, and we'll see if he gets signed. So with that in mind, now let me round out the rest of my draft, which included some backup players, bench players, and these are kind of intriguing too. First of all, I went ahead and drafted Trey Mancini. I know that Lenny has talked a lot about Mancini and the surgery he just had and how serious it really is, but there's nothing to indicate that Mancini will not be back playing, and particularly now with a 2-month layoff. And we know Mancini has a lot of ability playing outfield, playing first base. He has position flexibility. Last year, he hit .291, scored over 100 runs for a horrible Orioles team, hit 35 homers, had 97 RBIs, and now seems to be on a path to recovery. So I drafted Mancini. I drafted Lorenzo Cain as a backup outfielder. All indications are that Cain is healthy. We know he's a winner. We know he's in a great ballpark. And we know when healthy, he can not only steal you 20 bases or more, he can also hit you 20 home runs. So I love Cain in that situation to start off the year. And again, the delay can only help a player like him. I already told you I drafted Joe Adell. Won't get into that again. But 2 more players who could be starters on this team. Right now, I've got him on a bench role, is Cavan Biggio. Cavan Biggio, last year hit 16 homers and stole 14 bases. This year, I think he could hit 25 homers if it were a full season. He's going to be playing second base every day in Toronto, and I love the speed and power combination he brings. So if he's on my bench, then who is my starting second baseman? Well, I can tell you that's Starlin Castro right now, and there's a big reason why. He has been named the number 3 hitter in that Washington National lineup, and backing in front of him is Trey Turner, and backing him is Juan Soto. And I just think Starlin Castro, who hit 22 homers and drove in 86 last year for the last place Marlins in that, what a huge ballpark it is in Miami. Now he's in a better ballpark. He's on a much better team, and he's going to have good players both in front of him on base, and maybe arguably one of the greatest young hitters of the game, if not the best hitter in the game, Juan Soto, behind him. So I love Castro this year. I think he is the biggest sleeper in fantasy baseball. I really believe that. Now, he's not going to steal you any bases, but he's going to hit for some decent average. He's going to drive in a bunch of runs. He's going to hit some home runs. He's going to score runs. I think he's just grossly underrated. I got him late. I think he's a value pick, and I think you need to circle his name. Look for him on your draft boards. I'm going to bet he is down around pick 240 or 250. And for a guy who is in his 20s, yes, who we know can hit, yes, batting third on the Nationals, you got to go there. You got to give it a shot. I mean, there's a lot of upside with Starlin Castro. So that rounds out my team that I drafted, except for one player. Finally, I picked Miguel Sano. I think Sano, look what Sano did last year. In just over 100 games, he hit 34 home runs. If you were to factor that out over a full season, that'd be over 50. Sano doesn't just hit the ball, he punishes the ball. Okay, now I know he's like a Joey Gallo, but in an OBP league, Sano is gold as long as he's healthy. And now he's moved across the diamond to first base. At some point, he will be